All right, let's moving on to our next special panel. Let's join us for the influence of female leaders on organizational diversity and inclusion as we hear from inspiring voices who are driving meaningful changes from within. And for that, we are honored to welcome to the stage Ms. Marianne Mikau, Managing Director at CBA Design Asia, Mr. Valentin Tran, CEO at Andros Vietnam, Ms. Venus Theo Kim Wei, Executive Vice President, Marketing at Suntory PepsiCo Vietnam, and the moderator is Mr. Alexander Zihe, Managing Director in Asia Pacific for Vietnam. So let's join our hands in welcoming our panelists and our moderator.
Okay. So I'm forced to rush a little bit, but we will happily make the time up, so no worries on that side. Luckily, we got already the introduction on the companies and the faces we have here on the stage, so we can basically skip this part. And looking today at the audience, I have to say, I think in terms of diversity, we are quite good. We have a lot of nationalities, different age groups, but first of all, also a lot of female leaders here today present. But looking at the boring statistics, I have to say Vietnam is not doing too well. We are having roughly 33% in senior management positions in the hands of female. That is below the ASEAN average, slightly higher than Western Europe, but obviously in the region, Vietnam is not number one. So looking at that, I think it's the right topic to discuss today and to get into your experience and to learn basically from our panelists how they're thriving within their industries, what kind of trends they are observing. But then second of all, also what are the personal learnings from your side on how to emerge as a female leader or how to be surrounded by strong female leaders and how it's influencing you. So I'm also very happy that we have a mixed panel because it allows us to have different point of views. And I go straight into the discussion with you, Venus. You are in the FMCG sector, right? So, and you're very much driven by the consumer demand. So what kind of trends, what kind of changes you see around the female consumerism and how did it impact basically your work at PepsiCo? But also, I mean, you worked in the beer sector before. Is there any female trend in beer, for example? Could also be interesting. So how did it impact your strategies, your organization?
Yeah, just quick introduction. So I have been with the beer industry for almost 21 years. So I always joke with my husband and say I have given my youth to the beer industry. Yeah, but female consumerism is critical, right? So if you look at it over the years, particularly in Asia, in the APAC region, you can see that female has a consumer and female has a purchasing power is growing and increasing everywhere. So in the past, it used to be a very male-dominated, particularly in the beer industry, right? A very male-dominated industry. But what we are seeing over decades now that, consumers are becoming one of the critical consumer segment, not only for the beer industry, but also for the non-alcoholic industry. So I spent 1 year with Suntory PepsiCo now. So after 21 years in beer, I decided, it's time to swap to go to non-alcoholic. And it's also, with the age, I do need to move away from beer. But if we notice that, in consumer, it's not just the male, right? It's also the female. So when we do and approach our consumers, and I think this is for all marketers, we need to make sure that, we can engage them in the relevant way. And I think that has shaped, a lot of the marketing works that we have done across brands. And I think this is not limited to Suntory PepsiCo as well. So, we need to make sure that whatever we do, we need to engage with our consumer in the right context, in the right approach, and in the right, I would say, communication. So, yes, I think female is a big segment now for us, something that we cannot ignore. And to a certain extent, we have to relook at how can we tailor-make our marketing approach.
And did it impact your organization as well? Did you really had changes internally that were reflecting this?
Yeah, it does, right? I know that when we talk about inclusivity and diversity, equity, DEI, that is a typical word that we use in the industry. I actually have a different view. Right? And I was sharing with my panel my view that technically, when we talk about DAI, we always say fair treatment for everyone, regardless background, that, where they come from, what gender they are. But my view is different. My view is female and male are born differently. I mean, this is scientific, right? We are born differently in terms of biological, physiological. We are different, okay? So if you talk to any doctors, scientists, everyone, women and men are different in terms of muscle strength, in terms of fat body mass, in terms of hormone, we are different. And also in terms of reproductive organs, we are different.
And in terms of thinking also?
Yeah, thinking as well to a certain extent. So my views on DAI is not so much about, yes, having equal treatment is important, but the most important thing is to be able to acknowledge the differences, because we are built differently, to respect the differences, and the last part is to embrace the differences. And that is where, for me, is when we bring this view to workplace, we need to make sure that not everything fits everyone. You do need to be flexible in the way you approach the organization. That's my view, unless my panel has a different view.
They're always invited to give different viewpoints. But Marion, maybe still first building on the FMCG industry, right? You're working a lot with brands. You're helping brands basically to localize, to grow, to differentiate. So can you echo basically the trends Venus was like sharing on female consumerism, and how does it impact brands? Get brands more female? Or is there maybe a best practice example of a very female-driven brand, that really make a difference by adapting and approaching stronger on the female consumerism?
So from a brand perspective, I would say it really depends. It depends the category we are talking about. But even if we look in the gaming industry, what we saw during COVID is that even gaming was actually increasing the female audience. So what I really connect with what Venus was mentioning about is men and female are different. And in a company and in an organization, we cannot treat, female and male the same way. That's why the notion of equity is really important in order to ensure that we adapt the female and also the different genders about inclusion. And I think that's really more about inclusion today that we talk about, because also if we think about leadership and female leadership, there is really a discrepancy in terms of the notion of success. If we look at women, the image we want of a woman is about soft, generous, she has time, versus the image of a leader is very often associated to strong male leader characteristics. And that means that when you are a female leader, you are probably a bad woman, if we think about the normal generic terms. So how do we actually change a game in a society which is still encouraging the male specific traits of what a leader is about? And I think that's what our society really needs to evolve. I think we have improved. There's been a lot of movement to promote women, and that's also through mentorship in companies that we also can be guided as female, but also today we have, for example, within WPP, Unite Association, where our creative director in CBA Asia is part of, which is a global organization, which promotes each gender. And I think that's what is really important in our today's society, to ensure that we will understand everybody's life stage, because success at 20 years old is very different at 30 and 50 years old. And finally, I think, as a female, my generation has been really different from today's generation. We wanted to succeed when we were 20. That means that in 30s, we really had to hard work. And, some of us, couldn't have children because, that was not our key target. And we realized when we reached 40, now it's a bit late, so you need to encourage that. And we have now some specific talks within companies like Ogilvy, like WPP promotes to talk about that. But 10 years ago, nobody talked about that. The main thing was how to succeed, how to get a better title, how to get a better wage. But I think the key characteristic of a society is the notion of success needs to be redefined.
I can confirm what Marion said, because I'm the CEO of Andros, and 10 years ago I start to work in Vietnam, and I can see the evolution. In Andros, just some figures, we are more than 600 staff. 50% now is female. On my BOD, I have almost 60% female for the BOD. And when I start in Vietnam, it was not the case. And the female is not only workers on, the low position, at the director and also a position at management, we have more and more female. And also in the industry, FMCG, but also industry also, for example, we have many famous and very important women who lead the industry. I would say also something else. I have the chance to start my career in France, and all the managers I had were female, women. And in fact, female shaped my state of mind, my way of thinking, and the manager I am today. So, the evolution of the society is quite good, and even in Vietnam, maybe we are still slow compared to the other country, but it's on the right direction.
And I can also echo that, right? My first two leaders, line managers, were two very strong female leaders, very impressive, and they shaped a lot also my career. So sometimes it's also good as a man to talk about women, to share good experience, right? Because I think there are a lot of stereotypes still existing. Talking about stereotypes, you are also engaged in the beauty contests, right? And if we look at the role models we have, and if I think about beauty contests, I think about young, mostly single, beautiful girls, like ticking all the boxes of what is beauty. And I think it's fair to challenge really if beauty contests are really embracing the modern role of girls, right? So maybe and then female leaders. So
Alex, yes, I'm also the president of Miss Universe Vietnam. But I think that now we are in 2025. You like thinking like a dinosaur. So for sure, the image of the beauty pageant, if we are talking about Miss Universe and all the other one, have changed a lot. And if I take the example of Miss Universe Vietnam, we are fighting, and we are the willingness to bring more diversity, inclusion. For example, that Miss Universe now allow women with no limit of age. Was not the case before. Allow also to married women to participate, and also transgender LGBT. So this is a new era for female power, and it's not because you are participate to the beauty pageant contest that you are only beautiful. Thinking like that, I think that is very old-fashioned now. And we are looking for visionary and also female leader. If you have a look on the people who win last year, Kidwing, for example, or even her hand 8 years ago, she was maybe not famous. She even was criticized, but now she's a model for all the society and all the female in Vietnam. So I can say that the power of women, the beauty contest pageant now is on the willingness to also bring visionary and leadership for the women.
Did you encounter on the way of like diversifying basically the whole contest? Did you encounter any particular challenges, maybe by media partners or by your sponsors and so on? And if so, how did you react? How did you basically engage with them to drive towards the diversity?
With a sponsor, you mean?
Yeah.
The the, pl- the leadership of female is very important for sponsors. So many brands, and I expect that also PepsiCo will be a part of the journey, are very interested by the position of the female on the industry and as leader. So that's why we have many partners follow us on the journey. So.
I think it's beautiful to see the transformation in several industries, right? But Venus, looking at your role, your experience as a senior leader, a senior female leader, do you feel like the role changed you, or could you really use your role basically to change the organization towards more inclusion, more diversity?
I think I changed the role. I think if you have been working in the beer industry for 21 years, you see a lot of, I would say, differences across market and how female being seen as a subject of marketing, right? I think if you are as old as I am, you probably have seen a lot of beer advertising that's using women as subject in our communication. And I think I had my personal experience because I was handling one of the brands within the Heineken portfolio where, a lot of the markets are doing marketing. We have Beer Girl Calendar. Not sure whether you guys, at my age, but we have Beer Girl Calendar. And as a marketeer, I stopped that. I think this is where you have the empowerment to actually shape and also change the rule of games. And I think that, rather than trying to make sure that I adapt the role, I change the role. And I think this is where I would want to encourage everyone that, yes, we live in the world of expectation, right? Every organization has a mold for you to fit in. But I think this is where you have that decision to either follow or change or shape the directions. So I think being in the senior leadership for 10 years now, I decided that I would like to take that lead. And I think when we talk about inclusions and diversity, it always starts from the leader, right? It has to start from the top. We have to foster inclusive leadership. We need to walk the talk, right? We can't just talk. We have to walk the talk. We have, a couple of things. One is we need to encourage open communication, right? Open communication for everyone, not just for female, but for everyone in your team. My team have access to me. Viber, WhatsApp, whatever, Zalo, they have access to me. And that is where you need to have that open communication. Second is to create a safe environment. And I think that is very important for me based on my beer experience that you do need to create a safe environment for the people in your team to actually share their views, their fear, their opinions, and their suggestion. And I think that has allowed me to understand that my role is not just to do my job, but my role is also to make sure that everyone in the organization feels safe, feel respected, and feel happy at work. So that's my view on role versus, whether role lead you or you lead the role.
But I think it's a beautiful transition, right? And the calendar is a perfect example. I also remember many years ago how many bikini girl calendars I received from several partners, and I personally also happy to skip this. Yeah, so I think it's also not matching where we as a society should thrive for. Marion, you have a lot of intercultural experience as well, right? So you're a true global citizen, basically. Australia, Russia, Europe, Asia, you name it. Do you think that there is anything in particular in Vietnam which is basically impacting your strategy? Do you see anything around inclusion, around female empowerment, which is outstanding in Vietnam versus your experience, or you think it's more like a universal topic? Yeah.
So I think there are two topics here. The personal one, which is being blonde, being white, and arriving in Asia is different from the rest. And also, obviously, being a female. On that topic, which I will start, yes, it's definitely different because not only as Westerner, I think we are seen as a short-term, expat community, which will be used and after will be replaced. So that's one of the key challenge, obviously. But I've been living in Asia for 15 years. My first experience when I moved my studies was in China. So I don't see it as a short term. So it means we need to really fit even more and show our value and show what we bring, And I think it's, as a female, even in a more male industry, we need to work harder to show what we bring, and, why we are good at what we do. And I think that's one of the key elements, about inclusivity. And what I think in terms of inclusivity is also another point, and this is, we are in Vietnam. What I've always tried to do as part of my teams from Australia, but in Singapore, in Vietnam, is ensuring that we have a mix of cultures. Obviously, Singapore being our hub as a creative agency, it's probably a little bit easier because we have a lot of very various communities, and this is part of the system. But when I also opened the office in Vietnam, that's also something I really encouraged. And we really work as one team Asia. And that's something which is really important. So it's not going to be Singapore versus Vietnam versus China. We are all one, and we all bring something different with our expertise, our view, and it will play at different moments. So it's about really the origin and our background. And that's something that I would encourage any company to do on top of gender differences is, this more multicultural team that you can implement.
Yeah, looking at multicultural backgrounds, right, Valentin? So how are you bridging between France, Vietnam, your personal background, and does it have also any impact basically on the way how you approach the female leadership in your companies or in your projects?
I want to insist to repeat what Venus said. The right example comes from the leadership. So I had the chance to have, as I told you, very good female manager. So they give me this example, and that's why I said, okay, we need to go on this way. So the message for me is to, because life is difficult for everyone, life is difficult and we need to fight. So what I would say is that break the rules, show the example. You have some example in the society could give you the willingness to move. So we need to female, women, but also men, everyone need to move on this direction. When you see, for example, I just see yesterday that the first Vietnamese American woman went to the space. This is a good example that you see that we can do many, many good things and finally we can break the rules. So this is a message for everyone, but for female for sure. And in Vietnam, we need for sure, if we are waiting that the society change at the speed that we want, maybe we can wait for a long time. So as a leader, we need to show the example and people will follow us. This is, for me, the most important message.
That's a perfect call for action, and maybe also to close the panel, because I think everyone is getting hungry. Maybe Venus and Marion also one sentence call to action to our CEOs, CMOs to enable inclusion and enable female leadership.
I think it's simple, right, guys? This is not a very difficult. It's to really embrace the difference. For me, is whether you are female, male, I think everyone is different. And I think my advice will be, let's acknowledge that difference, embrace that difference, and also promote the inclusion and diversity. And I think has a role of the leader Your job is to actually walk the talk.
Yeah, and to add on that, my advice would be to be brave and taking risks and believing in yourself, because very often, and there are data showing this, women take less risks than men, even if they have better diplomas and better skills. So yeah, believe in yourself and take the risk.
Thank you so much for your insights, and I think I make our organization team quite happy by the sharp finishing line here. And having said that, again, thank you for everyone for listening. Thank you to the panelists for sharing all the insights, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. It was quite insightful. I wish you a great day. Thank you.
A moderator. Thank you to a moderator. Thank you to our panelists once again.